Alright, I think it's time to start wrapping this up, but man, there's gonna be a lot to talk about with Mania. I mean, I got the main game, I got the DLC, I got all the other little stuff I want to talk about. Might want some help on this one.
Thought I told you to never call this number.
Yeah, I kinda don't care. Anyway, you're coming in this review whether you like it or not.
I am so sorry for putting you through Rivals. Please have mercy on me.
Dude, I already did Sonic 4. We're doing Mania.
So you're rewarding me for torturing you? I like the way you think.
Wow, it's like if you treat your guests well, they like being on your channel or something. It's a weird concept, I know.
That is completely absurd.
Anyway, after Sonic 4 Episode 2, it would be pretty quiet on Sonic's 2D career, with only ports of classic games being the exception to the rule. But at Sonic's 25th anniversary party, and its horrible livestream problems,
the world debut of the Totino's Stuffed Nachos.
2 games were announced at that event. Sonic Forces as the next mainline entry and something we'll cover at some point, but more importantly, Sonic Mania.
Of course, all of this is made possible by Totino's.
Yep, the most important Sonic game in the last decade, and one of the highest rated as well. And rightfully so, being the product of Christian Whitehead and Simon Tomley, aka the same people behind the previously mentioned classic ports. So of course the project was seemingly in good hands right off the bat. The point of interest here is that typically Sonic Team would recycle old gimmicks and cash in on nostalgia, but it'd just be that, a reference. Sonic Mania, on the other hand, felt like their first honest attempt of going all in on being just like the Genesis classics. And no, I don't count Sonic 4, because I hesitate to say that any attempt was made at all with that train wreck.
Over time, we got more trailers, such as seeing all of the main cast back in action, and the beautiful animations made for stuff like the pre-order trailers. A certain spirit was being captured that Sega and Sonic Team never seemed to reclaim of their own, and pretty much everyone I knew, including people who dropped off of the Sonic series years ago, had this game in their sights. And as somebody who's been with this franchise for years, trust me when I say, that rarely happens with this series. Which I think is a clear sign that they were striking gold with this one.
And the game finally came out in 2017 and was the single best reviewed Sonic title in years. So much so that Sega greenlit an expansion to the game a year later called Sonic Mania Plus that comes with the physical release of the game, but we'll cover that a bit later.
Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the newest classic game in the series. That's still a really weird sentence to say out loud. Anyway, it's time to talk about Sonic Mania. So our story for Mania involves Tails sensing a weird energy on Angel Island. That sounds familiar. Anyway, Sonic and Tails go to the island to investigate what's going on. Some egg pawns end up pulling up the Phantom Ruby, which sends the duo and the nearby Knuckles through time and space, and transforms those robots into the hard-boiled heavies. Pretty much a group of new underlings for Eggman to boss around, as you go through each of the zones in another quest to take the Doctor down.
Being a classic game, there's never any dialogue included to explain what's going on, instead opting for the visual storytelling seen in Sonic 3 Knuckles and Sonic 2, and for the most part this works fine and things are communicated well. Aside for the actions of the heavies, that is. On my first playthrough I had no idea if they were working for Eggman or if they were operating on their own after that initial scene where Eggman yells at them, but apparently they're loyal to him until they get their hands on the Ruby, at which point the Doctor is discarded into the garbage disposal as you do with eggs that have served their purpose.
The only real story would be the ending with Super Sonic, as it has the heavies and Eggman fighting over the Ruby, and Sonic putting an end to both of them. Then the Phantom Ruby takes Sonic off to be the worst gameplay style in that game. Yeah, good ending, woo!
In other words, getting all the emeralds is the one that ties in with Forces. Ugh. I guess depending on who you ask, that's technically the bad ending of the game.
But in all, it's another excuse for an adventure without much else, so let's get a move on to the presentation. Now, Sonic Mania, as we mentioned before, feels like the first time Sega fully committed to a 16-bit retro style for this kind of game. Though being fair, this game looks like it's something more from the Sega Saturn than the Genesis, but my god, Mania is a gorgeous looking game. The backgrounds are so vibrant, and the sprite quality is exactly what I want to see in a 2D classic game. I also appreciate the style return more to the Sonic 1 and 2 sprite as opposed to where we were in Sonic 3. And honestly, these sprites do a great job of both popping out and having a ton of expression, like look at these guys when they clear a level, it's so good!
And even though it lacks a third dimension, they spend as much screen real estate as possible in this game, squeezing in references that some people might not even recognize. This is an anniversary game after all, and what better way to show that than to reference Sega Sonic Popcorn Shop? I mean, for real, when will they ever have a chance to do that again? And it might be a small detail, but I really love the distortion effect the Phantom Ruby gives off, coupled with that sound effect that... It really shouldn't hype me up as much as it does, but I guess I'm not really that hard to please. That was a lie, I'm a Sonic fan, we're very hard to please.
Plus, Mania also has a great animated intro that sets the tone of the game perfectly, and I like how it's based off of the Sonic Japanese covers. It's a really cool detail. The movie also has 2 different soundtracks, which is kinda neat. And that soundtrack as a whole, mostly composed by one T-Lopes, straight up, one of the single best OSTs Sonic has ever had, which is saying a lot for this franchise. The remixes, the new tracks are all just a joy to the ear, and you get 2 for every zone. Stages like Chemical Plant 2, Studiopolis, Press Garden Act 2, and Mirage Saloon Act 2 easily being some of the highlights. Studiopolis ended up being so good, it became one of the new tracks added for Sonic in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which must have been an honor for T-Lopes on that one.
They also added Fist Bump.
Later. Only happy thoughts right now.
References aside though, where I think the game shines the brightest is its original stages. Sure, the returning levels look better than they ever have, but would you really take Green Hill Zone over the gorgeous sprite art of Studiopolis? It has just enough moving parts in the background to make it lively but not distracting, and the color palette is divine no matter what mode you're playing. Press Garden is also super unique, being set in an abandoned printing press, and you might be asking yourself, well, why is it called Press Garden then? There, that's why. It becomes a snow level, and it's the least annoying of its kind that I've ever experienced in this series. Plus, the way the reds of the cherry blossom trees meshes so well with the standard ice motif, it sorta leaves me speechless, and if you know me, that's pretty rare.
So yeah, Mania presentation-wise, well, it just knocks it out of the park. But how does the gameplay hold up under that shiny paint? Now the gameplay for Sonic Mania, I mean, if you've been following these videos, you know how it goes by now. Go through levels with a save system that lets you track your progress, take down bosses, and move on to the next zone. The gang is rocking all their normal movesets, though Sonic and Tails can now do their flying maneuver with only one controller, which is great, and Sonic doesn't have his super peel out or insta shield he had from CD or 3 and K. Well, at least by default, you can turn those on in the extra menu once you unlock them. Instead, Sonic's new maneuver is the drop dash. Hold down the button when you're in the air and Sonic will do an instant spin dash when he hits the floor. Tails and Knuckles pretty much play exactly like how they did in 3 and K, so not much to go over there.
Being a follow-up, of course, many Sonic 3 elements return, such as the save system mentioned before, but there are also all 3 elemental shields returning as well. And of course, when you grab enough rings and go by a checkpoint, you have the returning Blue Sphere stages working just like how they did before. Though this time, they're not used to unlock emeralds, they instead find you extras such as the DA Garden and the dedicated Puyo Puyo mode. With that being said though, you might be wondering, how do you get the Chaos Emeralds this time? Well, you have to hunt down these special rings just like in Sonic 3, and instead they send you to a brand new special stage. These stages are 3D auto runners where you need to chase a UFO down that has the emerald, where if you fall off or run at a time, this stage will end. If you'd like to stay in the special stage and continue to try and grab that emerald, you might as well collect more rings, because just like when you're Supersonic, your rings are your time limit. Also, that UFO moves pretty fast. You might be wondering, how do I catch up to it? Well, you collect blue spheres, as Sonic has been known to do, and every time you do, you fill up a little meter at the top of the screen, which can increase to a maximum of Mach 3, making it very hard to control Sonic, but in most cases, it is the only way to catch up with the UFO after you've learned the level. If you're able to beat all 7 special stages, you are once again able to become Supersonic, and Tails and Knuckles even get to join in again this time.
Look at my baby boy all grown up. But in this game, you also got Time Attack, where you can try speedrunning stages, and Competition Mode, which with Mania Plus adds in 4 players to the mix. And that about covers all the new parts in Sonic Mania. So what were all the things that Mania got right? So the good in Sonic Mania. Well, first off, if you were worried that any of Sonic 4's wonky physics or level design would be here, don't be. The control is almost 1-to-1 of the Genesis classics, and the cast are a joy to control because of that. It really feels like this game was fine-tuned to match every one of the characters' abilities with routes that certain characters are really able to thrive in, especially Knuckles, who is honestly more fun to control here than he was in 3 and K. Hell, instead of the Sky Chase throwback in Mirage Saloon, Knuckles instead gets an entire platforming level tailor-made to his abilities, and it's honestly one of the best single levels in the game because of that.
And I've got more to say about that tidbit in the bad section.
In general, the level design really embraces that natural feeling of speed. There are so many sections where the level will let you do just enough platforming, give you a burst of speed, and immediately transition you back into platforming. It's almost down to a science in Mania, which helps in its phenomenal pacing. You just keep going without any real slow parts in the level. No Marble Garden or Sandopolis kind of zones that just drag the entire game down. Every zone hits its mark. And because of that, I don't really ever feel tired out like I did in Sonic 3 and K, despite Mania being about the same length.
And while there are only a few fully original zones, the 4 of them are easily the highlights of the game.
Studiopolis has an entire movie set aesthetic and a bopping theme to boot that makes it stand out in the early game, and manages to pull a fun twist on the casino level gimmicks of old, and has a ton of explorative level design. Come here with Tails and you can really go to town with him.
Press Garden, previously known as Pulp Solstice Zone, really cool name in my opinion, but I digress, evokes feelings of Sonic 1 for me. Having just played through that game again, specifically I got some Marble Zone vibes because of all the enclosed spaces, but what Press Garden has over Marble Zone is the experience of the last 20-something years. By adding more open chambers and gimmicks that constantly keep Sonic and Co. moving around the screen in fun ways, even with Press Garden's more reserved level design, it's still never a dull moment. For the more well-versed Sonic Chads in the comments, you might notice this zone houses the legendary Splats the Rabbit, a badnik that was lost to time after going unused in Sonic 1. But of course, leave it up to the Mania team to resurrect even this obscure friend. All rabbits, thank you for this service. Well, except maybe that one, but maybe he'll get his time to shine someday.
Also, Press Garden Act 2 with its Winter Garden aesthetic might be my favorite level in the game presentation-wise. It's such a pretty zone and the music, While Mirage Saloon Act 1 is fantastic with Knuckles, it's kind of a throwback to Sky Chase with everyone else, but more on that in a bit. Act 2 though does a great job of being a desert saloon with these fun paths to go down, thanks to these handguns you can fire off.
It's a lot shorter than most other levels, but that helps you feel like you're really speeding through efficiently, and when compared to the short levels of Forces, it still feels like you're doing a lot as opposed to just holding X to win. Quality over quantity. And finally, Titanic Monarch, the final level. I'm not really a huge fan of the aesthetic here, but it is without a doubt the best final level out of all the 2D games. It is brutal on your first playthrough, especially Act 2 with its 4 challenge rooms, but the variety on display outweighs the frustration easily. That being said though, I easily prefer the looks of Scrap Rain Metropolis, and even Metallic Mad is good future to this. Neither the default nor Encore palettes look that good to me.
Music for both acts are total bops though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even with the returning stages, Mania has a great consistency of having Act 1 usually play out as normal, but Act 2 will add in an element from a completely different stage and make a stage combining the gimmicks together, adding to more of an identity to each act like Sonic 4 did. Yeah, Sonic 4 did have some good stuff. Not most of the game though. Chemical Plant adds in the wacky workbench springboard, but it actually makes it work and the level feels totally different, or how Stardust Speedway brings in the mechanics from Marble Garden Zone to help with progression upwards. What I like about these gimmicks is that they work as nice callbacks, but unlike some other Sonic throwbacks, they never feel like screaming in your face references. They just naturally work into the levels that they're placed in. Like, I didn't even notice the launch-based gimmicks added in the Press Garden until this marathon, which is a sign of great design. Or me not putting 2 and 2 together, but I'm leaning more to the former.
And back on those special stages mentioned earlier, these are a strong contender for best in the series. Personally, I still like Sonic Rush as the best, but I'm sure that's not a very common opinion. When it comes to half pipes and blue spheres, there's a lot that can go wrong in a first playthrough, especially with half pipes, since sometimes it feels like you already have to know where the things are, or else you lose, and that doesn't really feel great. Trial and error kinda sucks. In fact, for some people, it might flat out make you not want to play them again at all, because they feel unfair, so you never improve, because like, why would I want to go back and improve at something that I didn't like the first time? Mania is not like that. Some of the special stages might be difficult, but since it works on a time system that you control by collecting rings and the stage loops fairly quickly, the player is able to learn everything they need to know to succeed the first time they enter. Of course, you can still mess up when you're playing these stages, but it feels more like your fault, because maybe you decided to consciously go for orbs instead of rings, and, you know, like, that's on you, dude. The stage isn't hiding anything from you, you just need to find the best way through it, almost like every other normal stage found in the game.
By the way, just want to mention I love the Supersonic theme, and you know, it's actually a theme this time and not a 3-second loop. Thank you for that. Also gotta say, when I was doing competition mode with some friends on Parsec for this review, it was actually pretty fun. It's the first time I could actually see myself going back to a multiplayer mode in a classic Sonic game, so that's a win for Mania on that. Just watch out for teleporters. They can be evil. I also want to talk about Sonic's new skill, the drop dash. Sonic has always been in a bit of a weird predicament ever since Tails and Knuckles got their core abilities, because he's always felt more limited compared to the two. And while that's still kind of the case, the drop dash just feels so natural in his kit to let him get speed on awkward angles and such. It's a great addition to the character. It's even been put into Sonic 1 and 2 with the Sega Ages ports, which I think is a sign that the move feels right at home in classic Sonic's kit, and I hope he keeps this move going forward.
I can't live without the drop dash at this point. Even ROM hacks and fan games have begun to make use of it as well, lending even further proof to the idea that the drop dash is an essential mechanic for the classic formula going forward. It's there to make sure you're always able to keep on the move, and that is very in the spirit of Sonic.
And on a similar beat to Sonic 3 and K, I think the boss fights are pretty fun. There definitely are a lot more dynamic fights this time, like the first Studiopolis one where you need to hit bombs back at the boss, or this Shinobi-inspired one in Press Garden. Eggman even busts out the Death Egg robot in Green Hill for crying out loud. There's one where you take control of the Egg-O-Matic, which is great, and Metal Sonic is actually a very lengthy fight, but post-update it features a total throwback to Knuckles Chaotix, and the final set of bosses are probably the best in the classic series that feel like a good challenge without going too far. So yeah, best set of bosses in the classic series by a long shot. Plus, there's a ton of little extras throughout the game. The Super Peel Out and Insta Shield are unlockables, as stated before. There's an entire Puyo Puyo side game, mainly because the boss of Chemical Plant has you do that as a throwback to Mean Bean Machine, which is a great idea. And most importantly, Knuckles and Knuckles mode, where you have two Knuckles at once. This is what peak Sonic looks like. You can feel all the love that went into Mania, and it's honestly infectious every time you play. When I finished a playthrough for recording and wanted to hop right back in and start another run, that's a sign I'm having a great time. Though sadly Mania does have a few sour spots. Yeah, Mania does have a few things that could have been polished up a bit more. Probably the biggest criticism with the game is the lack of original zones. Only 4 of them are fully brand new original zones, while the rest are taken from Sonic 1, 2, CD, and 3 and K. And while many of them do have new elements, they do borrow a lot from their original versions. It's the biggest blow against the game, and we can tell this is more of a Sonic Team mandate than something the developers wanted to do. Based on Sonic Team's history, we feel pretty confident in saying that. It's just disappointing because the new zones are just so good, you wish they were able to let the team go wild with the whole package. And while the pacing is good throughout most of the game, the only act that reads as a we could have done without this kind of zone is Sonic and Tails Mirage Saloon Act 1, which is a big Sky Chase throwback, and while it worked in Sonic 2 as a transitional part of the game, here it just feels a bit misplaced. But it's the only act of its kind, and you still get some platforming bits while you're on the train, so it's more of a nitpick.
And on that same tangent, to me, having a specific level for Knuckles and Sky Chase's place is awesome, because I can't stand Sky Chase, but it also makes me realize how most of the other levels are still more geared towards Sonic than they are Tails and Knuckles. And of course, the other two characters are even more obvious to this extent, but more on that in a bit. There are some areas that they can access that Sonic can't, but they never quite go the length of having specific entire level routes accessible, and again, just kinda makes Tails feel like an easy mode option like he was in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. On the flip side, Knuckles is only slightly harder since his jumps are lower, but the difference in difficulty isn't as extreme as it was in his debut game. While the level design is mostly free of stuff like bottomless pits, which makes levels flow better, by the second half of the game, there are a lot of crush deaths that can get really irritating. In fact, it was irritating enough that there were mods created to try and do away with some of the cheaper crush deaths, so that's how you know it was an issue. And if you've played Mania before, you know what we're talking about here. You would have had to at least seen this a few times throughout the course of the game. And while we're on the topic of frustration, could we talk about Oil Ocean Zone? It was my least favorite zone back in Sonic 2, and they somehow made it even worse in this game by fusing Act 2 with the Sandopolis ghost gimmick. You won't be attacked by the ghosts, but if the smog gets too thick, your rings decrease as if you were using the power of the 7 magical rocks we all know and love. Except in this case, you're the exact opposite of invincible. Seeing as your ring supply vanishes before your eyes, I'd say you're quite invincible.
But I'm gonna be real, these are very minor complaints in the grand scheme of things, because the team did such a good job at nailing what made the classic series work so well, it makes one of, if not honestly, the best adventure of the entire franchise. Sonic Mania is honestly just such a joy to play through. It feels like a grab bag of everything that made classic Sonic work, trimming the fat, and what you're left with is a wonderful journey that doesn't get tiring to revisit. I can attest to that. Even after doing 5 playthroughs for this game, I went right back in and wanted to do another run. And that's not something I can say for Sonic 3, even though it's just as big of a game. You know, even a little after Mania came out, I had Sonic 2 as my favorite classic game, and just in general, my favorite game of the franchise. But coming back to Mania after playing the rest of the classic series back to back, I have even more appreciation for all the things Mania got right, and I think I feel confident saying it. For me, Sonic Mania is currently the best game in the entire franchise. I cannot recommend Mania enough to anyone who has ever enjoyed this franchise. And even if you're not familiar with Sonic, I think Mania's quality will speak for itself. Sure, you're not going to get some of the callbacks and stuff like that, but if you are a Sonic fan, there's callbacks aplenty, made with love. Just play Mania. It's really good, guys. And we haven't even talked about the full package yet.
Before Mania released, my favorite game in the classic series was Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but as a whole, I wasn't really super invested in the 2D games. But sort of the opposite of what WiiDude said, Mania has actually allowed me to look back on the others in this series with a bit more fondness. The old levels that Mania adapts are great in their original appearances as well, and I would even wager that Mania would be a great place for someone who's new to the series to start their adventure off in. And of course, I have a more personal connection to the game, seeing as how it kind of jump-started my channel in the first place, so it's always gonna hold a special place in my heart, and it kind of just feels like the gift that keeps on giving. So a year after Mania came out, one of the few times Sega's ever done for Sonic, an expansion was released called Sonic Mania Plus, which could be bought for $5 or as a part of the $30 physical edition.
They also made a little animated series called Sonic Mania Adventures to coincide with Plus's release. And these are so good! They pretty much tell a small tale after Sonic forces to explain what happened to classic Sonic when he came back. But the comedy and animation in these, it's some of the best Sonic content in a long time. And Sega would continue to make these shorts for Team Sonic Racing and Colors Ultimate. These are the kind of tone and feeling that I feel fit this franchise, and I hope we get more of these, honestly for every major game if we can.
The 2 major additions being a new mode called Encore Mode and 2 new playable characters. And who were those 2? Well, those would be Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel, 2 characters that were long since abandoned by Sega, even showing up as missing posters in Sonic Generations. I always kind of loved that gag. Mighty was last seen in Knuckles Chaotix on the Sega 32X, and Ray was only ever in one game, Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, which was an arcade Sonic game. So, yeah, it's a pretty deep-cut reference.
So it's probably best to go over those 2 first, since you can play as them in the normal game after purchasing the expansion. Mighty has this insta-drop where he can stop on a dime and break through obstacles below him, and it's okay. I wished it was more like the bounce bracelet from Sonic Adventure 2, giving you more height. But the big advantage to Mighty is that he gets 1 free hit on spikes where he doesn't take damage, which gives him a lot more safety than other characters and lets him just cheese certain boss fights. And then you have Ray, who if you thought Tails broke this game in half, Ray yeah. Ray is essentially the cape from Super Mario World, where you get infinite flight by gliding. If you can manipulate it right, Ray can take easily some of the biggest shortcuts in the game, and by far has the highest skill ceiling of the game. So yeah, both are welcomed additions to the classic formula.
To be honest though, I've played as modded characters that fit the level design better than these 2. You either need to be a speedrunner to take advantage of Ray's abilities in most levels, and Mighty is basically just a super easy mode since he can negate so much damage. But anyway, it's cool to have them there, and the DLC is just $5, so I can look past that, I guess.
But now onto Encore Mode. Taking place after Sonic Forces, you free one of the 2 new characters and essentially play the game again, but the stages have a new color scheme to them, like Green Hill is now in a sunset, or Chemical Plant is a turquoise theme. The big gimmick to Encore Mode is that there are no lives here. Instead, you can pick up the 5 playable characters and control 2 of them at the same time, and swap between them with the press of a button.
Bonus stages are now a pinball machine that references Trap Tower from Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, where you can earn extra characters, and there are 7 new Chaos Emerald stages, and, okay, let's just start there, I guess. These special stages are way harder than the original 7. It's a pretty big difficulty spike right off the bat. Pretty much think of these as the Super Emerald equivalents of the special stages. I couldn't actually get all of these on a normal playthrough at all, and I had to go back and use level select to get all the emeralds. There's not too much of an incentive to do that this time around, though, because sure, you do get the super forms, but, you know, there's no special final boss fight or anything, so, meh.
You still only get super forms here. No hyper forms at all, which I do feel like was a missed opportunity. Maybe for Mania 2? Please? Come on. Encore mode can make for cool ways to go through levels, but Encore mode just doesn't feel that different from the main game to warrant playing this over the main adventure.
I've only played Encore mode in its entirety 2 times. Surely it offers a slightly different take on the stages, and I guess Encore does mean a repeated or additional performance, meaning obviously not much would be different, but I would have been more happy to pay like $10 or more for more original stages, or maybe even some new returning ones, given the Mania treatment. I'm sure they didn't have time to do this, though, as evidenced by Angel Island being the only stage to actually receive anything even slightly substantial in terms of new content, but I'll never stop thinking about the missed opportunities here.
And you can only swap between the 2 active characters unless you hit this special box. I do think it was a missed opportunity not to let you freely swap between all 5 characters, because that is some chaos I would fully welcome, and it would add a lot more replay value and identity to this mode. But as a whole, Mania Plus is worth it, honestly, just for Mighty and Ray, and it's $5. So if you grab Mania, be sure to get this add-on as well. If you haven't bought Mania yet, try to get it on Steam if you can. There's a ton of mod support that adds even more shelf life to the game.
Oh boy, do I know a little something about mods. If you're looking for the best of the best, I'd recommend checking out Amy Mania, which replaces Mighty, the arguably worst character, with Amy complete with her own set of unique moves and animations. Getting used to her new moves is really fun and actually lets you tear apart these levels in whole new ways. So Ray is not the only chaotic evil character anymore. As for level packs, I would really recommend the Misfits pack, which takes a whole bunch of levels from Sonic's history that you might not have thought would be brought over, such as Labyrinth Zone, and actually makes them really fun, which, I gotta hand it to you, that's impressive. We've also got Sonic Megamix Mania, which is a reimagining of Sonic Megamix, an older ROM hack that can be found in both the Genesis and Sega CD. And this thing adds a bunch of new stuff for every single character, and also adds Shadow as a playable character. It's pretty much one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in this game, so please do check those out if you want to.
And with that, that's a wrap on Mania. Look, if we haven't made it clear yet, go buy Mania. It is so good. Now, I'm just gonna be honest here. Mania 2 or some kind of new game from this team is really the only Sonic game I'm actively waiting for. I know there are new games on the horizon, and there's ongoing rumors for remakes that can be exciting for some, but with the current Sonic team, I just don't have confidence that the product that comes out of that studio is something I'll even like, so it's really hard for me to be excited for that. But even before Mania, the members of this ragtag team proved time and time again they know classic Sonic down pat. Christian Whitehead even made the definitive versions for the classic games and made Sonic CD a much better product than it was on initial release. And Mania's consistent quality, I just want more of that. And if you get them with fully original zones and let them go to town, but only time will tell.
Final thoughts on the matter for me, we need a Mania sequel. Less returning stages though, I'm sure everyone agrees that a fully unique 2D Sonic experience would be a breath of fresh air, especially since most of us have very little faith in the next 3D entry anyway. Sonic Rangers, more like Sonic endangers his future again. Yeah, okay.
Anyway, you want to plug your stuff before you head out?
First off, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on the channel. This is a lot of fun to do. I always like doing collabs, and ever since Rivals, I was looking forward to the next one. If you want to find what I do, it's pretty similar to what Patrick does. You can check out youtube.com/Garrulous64. Really hard to spell, but it'll be on screen or something. You can also find me on Twitch under the exact same name. Again, that'll just be wherever. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I will see you guys next time.
Well, now that he's out of the way, if I were to rank the classic series, top to bottom, best to worst, it would go something like this. Mania is the top for me for firing on all cylinders as stated before, and it's now my favorite game in the franchise. Sonic 2 right after for its pick up and play nature and for being such a fun comfort food kind of platformer. Then Sonic 1 for being a good starting game. Then CD for feeling like it has good ideas but not quite fitting them all together. Something you can say for a lot of Sonic games, honestly. Then 3 and K for being a bit too big for its own good. And then Sonic 4 for being Sonic 4. But for most of these games, I do recommend at least giving them a shot. But as far as Sonic content will go, well, you might see a few standalone videos here and there. I'll probably cover that Sonic Origins collection when it comes out. But next time I do another marathon for this blue thing, it will be with his early 3D entries, and I assure you, that will be a very calm and civil process. Yeah. Well, speaking of marathons, I got one cooking right now that I know people have been waiting a very long time for, so I'll see you then. So I realized after editing that this is review 50 of like the main series on the channel, so yeah, celebration, woo! Anyway, you know the drill. Subscribe if you enjoyed it, share the video around. If you want to support me, go on to Patreon, really does help, all of that good stuff. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to working on the next marathon. I'll see you then.